Hey everybody, it's day 14 and welcome to the vlog. My name is Ted Forbes and I've been in business for myself now for 14 days. 2 weeks ago I left my job to pursue my passion, which is producing my other online show, The Art of Photography, full-time. It's been a wonderful 2 weeks. It's been very interesting and I think I've learned a lot about myself, and I want to talk about lessons learned today, mainly in terms of productivity and using the calendar. One of the things that I discovered about myself is that I get really excited, I get amped up, and I'm used to working in an office with lots of employees and departments that handle things, and I think I probably overestimated what I could actually get done in my first 2 weeks. And the reason there's been a 2-week chunk is I'm actually leaving town next week to go on a vacation that was planned before, so it's been a little bit of a race to see what I can get done and accomplished in those 2 weeks. And so a lot of the things that I had in mind were, bigger production values, reformatting the show a little bit, and all these things I wanted to do, and I realized I really didn't have time to cram all those in, and I am the only employee here right now, so I think I was a little overestimating in my own time and what I could accomplish in a normal work week. Anyway, having said that, one of the things that I'm warming back up to really quickly is getting a better relationship going with my calendar. The calendar is essential. It's really important. I know this may seem obvious, but having a calendar and using it, when it's done correctly and you trust your calendar, you respect your calendar, it allows you to design your life, it allows you to design your week, it allows you to design which projects you're working on, how things are going to get done. And there is no, other than to-do lists, I mean, that's one of the most productive things you can possibly do, is being able to have control and design over that. And I have kind of fallen out with my calendar a little bit in the last 7 years. When I worked for an institution, we had to use Microsoft Exchange, and a lot of large institutions use Microsoft Exchange. You guys probably have had experience with that as well. I hate Microsoft Exchange. I don't like the way it forces you to do things the way it wants to do them, the way it won't sync with certain things sometimes, the way that all of a sudden I'm keeping a Gmail calendar over here because I have to do it with somebody else. It won't talk, and I really hated the fact that somebody else could look at my calendar and see an open space and think, I'm going to put a meeting there. Go ahead and stick it there. It appears on my calendar, and if I decline it, then they're like offended that I turned down their party invitation or something. And I know scheduling meetings is difficult. I'm not going to get into all that, but as a result, I got to where I did not respect that calendar, and I wouldn't use it correctly. I'd kind of look at it in the morning, see what appointments I had, and allow the little alerts and reminders all day to, ping at me and let me know where I need to be and when. And that's a terrible way to look at your calendar. You're not getting any of the use out of it that it, has the potential of being. Anyway, so I want to talk about, I have 4 talking points I want to make about calendars today, and just things I've been thinking about that have influenced the way I work. And remember, the goal here is to have the calendar be this amazing tool that lets you design what it is that you're doing, and that's really important. So point number 1, the calendar is sacred. This means things don't go on the calendar that aren't going to happen. You don't hold time on the calendar. You don't, I know it's a little bit more work to maintain that, but if somebody says, hey, you're going to need to hold next Thursday for this, I don't hold that time. When you can confirm that meeting, I will decide whether that's something I can do in my schedule or not. Because what'll happen is if things hang onto your calendar that don't happen, and there's a lot of them sometimes, like, we've all had that weekly meeting that people quit going to and it kind of falls off and it's still on the calendar. When things are hovering on your calendar that don't happen, that's when you start to lose trust with your calendar, and that is very unfortunate, and that's a big problem. So the calendar is sacred. Only things that are going to happen go on it. If they get canceled and they're not going to happen, they are physically removed from the calendar so that space opens back up. You have to treat your calendar with that respect. The second point on that is that I don't let other people put things on my calendar. My calendar is my sacred space. No one else can get into it, and I have to maintain, I have to live by that, and that's how it is. So that is the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is, if we're drilling down and getting more specific about what we're doing with the calendar, is to actually reserve specific days for certain tasks. And so, one of the things when I left my job 2 weeks ago, I did a video and it was basically informing viewers on the art of photography that I was going to be doing this full time. I got a little bit of traction on that, some small viral stuff. I got featured on Petapixel, and that video got a lot of views. As a result, I started getting a lot of emails from people who wanted to have potential business relationships, either as advertisers or as partners or something of that nature. Now, I'm not complaining. That's a great problem to have. I've never been at a point in my life where people were actually approaching me about stuff, and it's awesome. And so you want to start setting up phone calls for these things. And so, I got excited, look at the calendar. Okay, everybody tends to want to have their phone calls either right before or after lunch, which is fine. So you start putting them on the calendar. Well, next thing I know, I've got this appointment that I'm going to be on the phone for a meeting, and I'm thinking about it while I'm trying to concentrate on something else. And so this is breaking my focus on something that's really important to me for something that is potentially might happen or might not happen. And I'm also not allowing the time to prepare for that phone call and put my energy and focus into it. And that's not fair for the person who wants to talk to me. And so as a result, I've decided that I have one day a week where phone calls can occur. Not any day, but on Mondays. I want them early in the week, late in the week, if there's any kind of follow-up and the phone call is successful. I don't want the weekend to like throw everybody off guard. So I think Mondays are a great time for phone calls. So if somebody wants to talk to me on the phone, that happens now on Mondays. Now, I understand that sometimes you have a partnership or a client or something like that, and you need to have a phone call in the middle of the week, or sometimes an emergency might crop up or something happens on that nature, and that's fine. That's different, but the whole idea is to corral that down into one day, and that they just need to happen that way. That way I can centrally sit there and focus and know that I'm not going to try to plan a whole lot of other things because I've got 4 phone calls in a row. I can have time between them to research the caller and who I'm going to be talking to, and that's really important. So batching things is really important. The next one kind of applies to that too, and it's be careful with social planning. And then another nice problem to have is that I have a lot of coworkers that I miss. That it's only been 2 weeks, but people want to see how you're doing. They want to see what you're doing, and so I get a lot of requests for lunch. And I think some of this has to do with a lot of people don't understand what it means to work for yourself. I end up working a lot harder than I did when I worked for an employer, but it's all my passion, so it's much different, but it is more work. And a lot of people think that you're just kind of hanging out and sleeping late and watching television and soap operas, and it couldn't be further from the truth. You have more to do because there's only one of you there to do it. And so this is really important that I don't get overzealous with social appointments on the calendar. And so again, I think moving forward, it's no offense to anybody, but I will have 1 or 2 days a week where I can allow myself to book a lunch. The others, I need to stay focused on, it depends on what you're doing too. I'm in the middle of kind of a forward-thinking overhaul of what I'm doing with a lot of these videos, and it just requires a lot of focus and time and blocking those off on the calendar to get a good track on that. And sometimes when I break for lunch and I'm talking about things I was doing in my former job a couple weeks ago, it just breaks that concentration. And I love seeing people, but happy hours could work out. You can see more people, but just lunches are a little more problematic when you work for yourself than they used to be. And so I think that's another thing. So social planning during those 8 hours a day that you work, even if it's lunch. The fourth point I want to make is batch plan certain tasks. And so again, I think along with the phone calls and knowing those happen on one day of the week, I think in general, if you're looking at your calendar and you're realizing, hey, I've got about 4 errands to run, you don't want to run 1 errand on Wednesday and then maybe you go to the grocery store on Thursday and then Friday you run the other 2. That's a big waste of time. You got to go and come back. So anything that you can batch like that and put into one chunk of time on its own, and this is hard to do because it kind of has to be done as the week is unfolding when a lot of errand type things pop up, for instance. I think another example too is when I'm scripting shows. Like I have a general map of where I want the art of photography to go and how I'm going to get there. And so a lot of that is in the content planning and subject planning of what we're going to cover on the actual shows. And so a lot of times if there's research involved, what I don't want to do is go back and forth between research and maybe filming a little bit in the afternoon. What I want to do is batch a lot of my research time into a large chunk if I can, do a lot of my outlining and scripting in a large chunk if I can do that, and then do all my filming and then my editing and then release and all that. Those all need to happen kind of in a big pool together. Again, that doesn't always work out, but my thinking on this and these points about my calendar, I think the most important thing for me is to at least be conscious of these things, and that way it just keeps them from getting completely out of hand. So anyway, it's been a wonderful 2 weeks, and those are just some lessons learned, is that rather than jump right into the pool, I probably needed to step back and get a little bit more organized about how I was viewing things. But you know what? It's all about learning. It's all about moving forward, and the fact that I am able to, in doing these videos, look at my life in a 2-week chunk or whatever, you know, when I record a video and be able to speak to that, I think is really important because it helps me. So it's time to turn it back on you. Do you have any calendar hacks or anything that works for you? Please share it in a comment below. I would love to keep this discussion going with you guys. And once again, if you like this video, consider sharing it or subscribing to the channel. That way you stay up to date on all the latest and greatest video content that I put out. And this is a separate channel. I'm not doing this as part of the Art of Photography channel. So this is specifically Ted's vlog. So share the video, subscribe. Happy you guys watched it. If you've made it this far, much appreciated. Leave a comment and let me know what you're doing with your calendar. And I will see you guys in the next video. Later.